Here's the deal. We fail the mission, you die.
If we find out any information you give us is false, you die.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
What? No.
If you mismatch blacks, you die.
No.
If you cough without covering your mouth.
Harley, those last three aren't things. Although, I probably don't need to say this, but that isn't an open invitation for you to cough without covering your mouth.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.
Sean has this, weird twisted stick up his fanny.
Because I expected this to be bad.
No, I need a palate cleanser after this movie. I'm not watching a 4-hour movie, Sean.
Hello and welcome to Cheap Seat Reviews, the podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good.
The greater good.
Yeah. Hi, Sam. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you. It's been a while.
Yeah,
again.
It has been a while. We took last week off. We were not here last week. I'm sure you probably noticed. And it was good. I took a little vacation. I think, Sam, you were on your third vacation of the summer. I'm not sure if Andrew...
I turned my whole life upside down. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you did. You really did do that.
Yeah, you did.
So it's but it's good to be back. Last week was it was refreshing and it was fun. And also in its place of our show, we had the Them's Fighting Nerds episode, which I've already gotten some feedback on, which is awesome. So I appreciate the few of you that sent me some messages saying, "Hey, it was pretty fun. I liked it. I would listen to it again if it was a topic that I would be interested in." I'm like, "Yeah, I can get behind that. I can get that." So, yeah. So there we go. So this week though is not that week. This is this week, and this is episode 358. And tonight we're talking about The Suicide Squad. I am Sean Allred, and joining me tonight is Andrew. Can also detach his arms to slightly annoy people. Jimison.
If I could do that, there's so many times that I would have just taken an arm off and just beaten somebody with it. Because I've been that frustrated several times in my life. I could just rip an arm off, beat somebody with it, take it, and put it back on.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting power that you can remove your arms and they could float.
They float, like hovering. Somehow of a hover thing.
Although I will say I had a very close connection with Polka Dot Man because adolescence was a bitch.
Wouldn't it have been nice though to puke it out twice a day and then have cleared up, So just takes those two expunges and your clear skin.
Yeah. Sam once ate a bag of dicks for freedom, Vector.
And that's no lie, folks.
No, I just repackaged them and sent them to the folks in Idaho.
Yeah.
So that's it. Now talk about a deep cut there.
Yeah, that's a deep cut. Oh.
But Sean.
Yeah.
In a movie that is full of many different ways to off you.
Yeah.
I would probably say that I'm going to drop you from a helicopter in the middle of the ocean and just see if you swim or not.
Okay. I guess that's all right.
That's about it. Yeah.
I mean, I can.
No, we'll see.
But
you're kind of weaselly, so I figured you maybe say.
I'm weaselly. That's about the meanest thing you've ever said to
me. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm not.
No,
I'm not.
No, you're not. Not as you shouldn't be. And making his cheap seat reviews return is Jesse. Wishes Nathan Fillion was in this movie longer from the Sudden But Inevitable podcast.
It's true. I do. But I wish Nathan Fillion was in everything for longer, primarily Firefly, which was the first show that we covered on Sudden But Inevitable. And also, of course, the show that we took our name from. But my whole thing with that character is if they just put a gun in his hand, that would be a really effective thing. Because he could just float his arms to behind everyone and shoot them. I was actually a pretty good power considering. Oh, nope, they didn't. Okay, all right. They somehow did not arm that guy. So
he was armed.
They literally didn't arm the unarmed man.
He was armed, yeah.
Right. It was like a ultra pun or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? But to be able to shoot the arms in the air and still impact poor Nathan Fillion, that kind of made me a little sad. I figured maybe the arms weren't going to be.
Yeah.
You know, especially since they hovered, I figured maybe they were robotic or I don't know. I was surprised at the fact that that he was getting impacted by bullets into his floating arms. So.
Yeah, and if they, I just a pistol in one of the hands. Yeah. I mean,
or
huge
some
difference.
sort of weapon. Some sort of weapon. You know,
or here's an idea that boomerang that boomerang guy had. I mean, you put that in the ghost arm, and I think you have recipe for success.
You know, knife, go stabby stab. You know, float up behind people and.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of better ways they could have done it. It just came down to when I was watching it in the moment, I thought, oh, these are going to be coming. They're not going to see the arms. He's going to come up and take a gun out of somebody's hand. He's gonna like flank these guys and like, oh no, he could just all he could do is like just annoy them.
Like twist some necks, like he's about to break some necks and kill some guys, real stealth like. I don't. So, have any of you guys ever seen the show Venture Brothers?
No, I know what it is, but I've not watched it.
Okay, so on that show, there's a supervillain called the Phantom Limb, and he looks like a floating torso because all of his limbs are invisible. And his power is that when he touches people with his limbs, it like drains their energy. So he's kind of like rogue level power, right? But he looks really stupid because he looks like he's just a floating torso. Somehow he's still more menacing than the detachable kid. When the parody version of your character is more impressive than the actual character, something is wrong. But I fully expect that is why they picked that character.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I almost want to see the backstory of TDK. Right? Like why he was in jail.
Yeah.
And like why, what happened to him? Why is he not, why is he there in the first place?
Yeah.
How long has he been in jail? Has he been in jail since he was a kid? Because why is he not the detachable man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if he can detach his arms, that makes me think that his jail cell must be like, chain link fence, right? Because otherwise he could just detach his hands through the bars and find a guard and
I pictured like a hamster bubble
the guard
and annoy the guard, right? Like
maybe one of those Hannibal Lecter or a Professor or not Professor X, Magneto plastic cell.
There you go. Yeah.
Put him in a large hamster ball. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. But it would be kind of neat, like be in the cell next door, and he's like, "Hey, let's thumb wrestle," and his arm just comes over, and you guys just thumb wrestle. I don't know.
I can think of many. Sorry, I can think of many instances where detachable limbs would really be beneficial.
Well, as a child of the '80s, right, going to change the channel, right? How nice would it have been to just kind of sit back on the couch and flip your arm up there and change the channel?
Sure.
I was born in 1988. When you say change the channel, what is that? What are you referring to?
It's a little twist knob.
You mean pick a different app on your television?
Yeah.
Oh dear Lord.
Like Sam actually had a dial on his TV, and you actually had to rotate an antenna before you could get a signal.
Well, I was going to say you had to go on the roof if you wanted to change too much.
Well, the TV, the first TV I had in my room was a box set, like it was encased. It was furniture, right? It was a TV inside a wooden case with the speaker built in, and it had the turn dial, whatever. But we were new enough that we had a cable box that sat on top, so the TV lived on 3, and then if I wanted to play Nintendo, I had to physically turn the TV to 4. Click.
Yeah, so that was just for the sake of the bit. The first TV that I experienced in my life had a knob on it because it was my grandfather's. So I know exactly what you're talking about with changing the channel. But I think it was worth it.
Sure. By the way, our listening audience won't understand what's happening, but I'm looking at your camera, Jesse, and behind your left shoulder, it looks like you have the Tesseract over there. Like, what am I looking at that's glowing?
Tesseract. Oh, that's my NCC 1701-D Enterprise glass LED display.
Oh, sure. Okay. Now I can see the shape. Like, to me, on my camera, it's just a giant glowing cube. I mean, it looks like at any point Loki is going to show up and steal that thing.
Nerds.
I could deal with that.
Really?
I mean, as long as
you're on this
podcast, as long as I get to go into the parallel dimension where James Gunn works for Marvel. Oh, wait, he does work for Marvel. Never mind.
Yeah, he's coming back. Though he did have some things to say about Marvel. It's interesting to we'll get into that. So this is Cheap Seat Reviews. This is the Suicide Squad. That was the longest intro I think we've ever done on this show.
Yes.
And let's dive.
That's it. That's the show, folks.
Oh,
We'll
that is the show.
week.
Have we even mentioned it? Yeah. So the brand new 2021's The Suicide Squad. I'm glad we did this because one, it forced me to watch the movie, and two,
forced you.
I mean, to be honest, I would not have watched it otherwise if it wasn't for the
Really?
podcast. I didn't watch the first one.
Sean has this like weird twisted stick up his fanny about the DC universe, so he doesn't want anything to do with it. So when he sees a DC property come out, he says, "No, not even going to do it because Batman versus Superman ruined my life." That's what he said.
None of those words are true, but thank you, Andrew. I don't.
That's clearly what you think.
I really don't like the DC universe. I do think it's terrible. I think they don't have leadership at the top, so it's confusing as to what's actually happening. But we watched the Birds of Prey movie again because of the podcast, and I had a good time with it. I thought it was fine. Admittedly, I have not seen Shazam, and I do need to, and I want to, mainly because I like the main actor.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. You would really like that one.
Yeah, I just haven't made time to. Is simply what it boils down to. If we do it for the podcast, then heck, why not? Then I'll make the time. But I've seen the first Suicide Squad, I've seen the first hour 3 times, but it's always on so late on TNT that I never get to finish it. So I know how it begins, but I don't know how it ends at all. I just know that Will Smith and Harley Quinn survive because she's in the next movie, and they say multiple pieces of trivia in this movie is that Idris Elba was actually brought in to replace Will Smith, and then they changed their minds to give Idris a different character so that Will Smith can come back and be Deadshot. So if there's going to be a third one of these movies. But which is weird.
But I'm in the same boat as you though, Sean. I probably would not have gone, "Oh, okay, I'm going to make some time and sit down and watch this." Not out of any fear that the DC universe movies will be bad, but just out of sheer not caring about them.
Really?
I saw,
See,
I saw
been
Wonder
looking forward
Woman
to this one for a while. With James Gunn, put at the helm of it. I was excited about it. In fact,
if there was one that I would be excited for, it would be this one because this is the first one that I feel like had its own identity. Just from the marketing that I've seen, because having not watched the others, I have to go kind of based on the marketing and then the reactions, right? And that definitely holds up. This one has definite James Gunn fingerprints in it, and we'll get into that. But I personally wouldn't have picked it as far as a movie that I would go, okay, there has to be some way I can get this in this weekend. I have been told by a lot of people that I know that they really wanted me to watch it, so I probably would have at some point. But it wasn't one where I was like, okay, I have to see this, because in my head going in, I was like, this has to be their version of Guardians, because they as soon as he was fired, it was the next day that they hired him.
Oh gosh,
right?
yeah, they were on him quick.
And he was fresh off Guardians 2, so they knew that he has this formula that worked at least for Marvel. So it really felt the optics of it, if I could use that word, which I hate, felt like they went, "Hey, come make that movie for us instead." And he went, "You know what? I'm going to. And I'm going to stick it to Marvel by making the Guardians-est Guardians movie that I can, but rated R."
Yeah.
And if you look at it from that perspective, it's like he totally succeeded in doing that, I think.
Yeah.
And in my perspective...
Go ahead, Sam. Or unless you're talking and you're muted. In
I
which
was
case,
gonna
this
say
is the
he can't.
best. This is the best. Yep. No, totally agree, Sam.
He
You're one-
was saying in his purse.
I'm back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I went and saw Black Widow in the theaters because I didn't want to wait for it on streaming. Whereas with Suicide Squad, because it was on HBO Max, I watched it the weekend it came out, and I probably wouldn't have gone to see it in the theater.
Well, I mean, fair. The weekend it came out, it was 5 days ago. So I mean, it's not like it's not like we've been waiting a long time. So for this movie to come out, but and I do feel like I sort of need to defend myself a little bit to Andrew's bashing of my character. I don't like the DCEU movies because I don't think any of them are any good except Wonder Woman. I think they're all bad. So he's not wrong. I haven't seen Shazam, but Andrew's also he's not wrong when he says I have a stick in my butt because they're all kind of bad. And
well,
So,
DC has an OP
I'm
problem. Their people are OP.
No, they have an OP as in they don't like OP doesn't like
I
him.
thought you were trying to defend against what I said. You're just agreeing with what
No,
I
I'm
said.
100%
in.
No, I'm agreeing with the fact that they're bad movies. What I'm defending against is that if a new one comes out, I'll watch it. When the new Pattinson Batman comes out, I'll go watch it. I'm not saying I hate DC movies. I'm not saying I don't want to be entertained. What I'm saying is that they haven't figured their shit out. It feels like the entire DCE universe right now, or the DCEU, whatever it's called, is in the same listless world as post Disney Star Wars, where they've got those.
Do you think?
Do you actually think Star Wars?
Fair?
I think is safe now, but you had a point for probably a year, 3, 4, 5 years there. But I think it's safe now with Filoni and the other.
Right, but the problem is that with Filoni and them, all we're going to get is great TV. We're not going to get any more of those sequel movies. Like, only movies we're going to get is filler movies like Han, Solo 2, and I'm sure that whoever the guy Gareth Edwards that directed Rogue One, which was great, then eventually we'll get the Botham story on how all the Botham died to get us this information, because Rogue One's the best movie since Disney purchased. Hell, Rogue One's better than anything other than 4, 5, and 6.
Absolutely.
So,
agree.
Well, what I was going to ask Sean is, do you think it's fair though that you might be a little biased when you think about a DC movie and go in with kind of a preconceived notion that this movie's probably going to be bad?
That's totally fair. That's 100% fair.
Okay.
No, again, I'm leaning into it because I expected this to be bad just because it had DC in front of it, honestly.
Yep.
Because because I had to ask Sam 1,000 questions yesterday when we agreed to this movie. I said, "Is this movie a sequel?" And he says, "No." And I said, "So the first one doesn't exist?" And he says, "Well, that's not true either. The first one still kind of exists, but it doesn't. This isn't a reboot because those characters are in the." And I'm like, okay, so like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so confusing. And even James Gunn literally says it's not a sequel, it's not a reboot. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So like that other,
because you've got some survivors from the Suicide Squad, the first one that reappear in this one, and of course Margot Robbie is.
Right. So that's what's
big one.
Like, let's literally, it's so funny because they have to explain in this movie why she's in the movie. They're like, "Hey, how did you get back in jail?" And she's like, "Oh, I robbed a bank or something." Like, they had to explain why she's back in jail because the last time we saw her, she wasn't in jail. She was out gallivanting with her friends in Birds of Prey being vigilantes. So,
Pissed off about breakfast foods.
right, looking for her burrito. So that's what was confusing, is like, if this is just a straight up reboot of that movie, then the timeline still kind of works. Then she can still escape, like she escapes at the end of this movie, and then Birds of Prey can be. But this movie, because she literally says, "I made a promise that like I wouldn't let boyfriends, whatever," right? That's the quote unquote growth that we got from her from Birds of Prey. So this is obviously after Birds of Prey. So anyway.
why couldn't it? In my head, like, I just watched it as a sequel. Like, okay, this is because I remember the same. I cannot remember the Walla, or I think is the woman's name, the woman in charge of the unit. She, I remember her from the marketing of the first movie. She was definitely still in charge. So that character is the same. I know that Margot Robbie, like you said, has been in several things as the same character. So I just figured this was a sequel, and they had a ton of supervillains to burn through because they were like, yeah, the people from the first movie I assumed were mostly dead, and they were like, they're not in this because we have so many to choose from that we don't pick the same guys every time. Suicide Squad means all of these losers, not just whoever happens to be in the current on the current mission, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was easy to just assume it was a regular sequel, and I don't know why they wouldn't just say that. Like, yep, it's just a sequel.
It's the next version of Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Or it's the next thing that takes place in the Suicide Squad unit. Like, we don't...
Yeah.
It's not those characters. It's just the same setting. So that's a sequel, I think. Like...
But like,
but they're so afraid of being associated with the first Suicide Squad. It just blows my mind because
then they should have changed the name.
Isn't that good? But it's not like the worst movie ever.
They should have changed the name
agree.
if they were that worried about it. They should have changed it to, Bloodsport and the Howling Crazies or whatever.
They keep the name Suicide Squad because this movie is. And Andrew, you're the only DC guy here. I'm sorry, Corny's not here to help you, but this movie is more true, from what I read in the trivia, to the original '60s and '70s comics of the Suicide Squad. And James Gunn specifically picked different villains, obviously except for Harley Quinn and Flag. But he picked these guys because they're obscure, and that's the point. Is like. They're supposed to be these weird, obscure. They're supposed to be bad guys that are bad at being bad guys.
Yep.
Like these are the guys that the regular police can stop. You don't need Batman to stop these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like the regular police force can stop these guys. So, anyway.
So Michael Rooker sure is looking orange for 8 minutes, 6 minutes. I wrote down how long it took in case you guys are wondering. They set the whole movie up. What I wrote was this movie doesn't care that I don't know anything about it and is actually almost counting on that, it would seem. And it took 2 minutes and 58 seconds to set up the entire movie.
Yeah.
Now, here's my question. Right after they did that, they set the movie up again? Like... They explain to you what the Suicide Squad is. They go get a bad guy. They put him on the team. The mission starts like, oh, okay. And then they flash back
basically
to
what
doing
they wanted
that.
to tell us is they wanted the head fake. And I think they wanted us to assume that we are going full barrel into this, especially by putting Flag and Robbie on the first team. And by the way, we're going to spoil the hell out of this here in a second.
Oh,
yeah. I guess I should put that.
And
Spoilers alert. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and by doing so, and then doing what they did, and massacring the first batch of baddies, including Nathan Fillion, which I thought was going to make it, at least for a little bit longer, right? It totally set the tone that nobody was safe. It does what I love what movies do, and set there's not standards, stakes.
Right.
There's stakes in this movie, and it feels like nobody's safe, and at any point anybody can die. And I love that about this movie.
But here's a question. Okay, this movie has some heavy Rick and Morty vibes to it. For me, anyway. So I'm going to use a Rick and Morty thing. I have a flashback to 2 weeks ago when you were still alive. You like that? Like, how about we start our stories at the start and not at the part where they get interesting? Like, can you put the movie chronologically together? Like, do we have to have a flashback that's 5 minutes long just to set up that, yes, it's hyper violent. Yes, everyone can die, this, that, and the other thing. Because you could argue that if we spent the whole time we spent with Idris Elba, right? If we spend that time also with Nathan Fillion and Michael Rooker and this, that, and the other thing, it's possible that their deaths would be more impactful when they do eat it almost immediately at the start of the mission. But it was one of those things where I was in the same boat as Sean, where I was like, like I'm going into it almost with my arms crossed, but more of like, okay, you have basically a clean slate here, DC, because I don't have any frame of reference outside of I did like Wonder Woman, and I kind of liked Man of Steel. I didn't really hate it. I thought it was a little bit moody, I guess, but like it was fine. And to be 100% clear, I'm a pretty big DC Comics fan. That's why the movies I think are so frustrating, because I know that they have good characters and they have good storylines, and they're like, no, let's make another Superman movie and another Batman movie. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. And if they don't do that, then they make a movie out of the Batman bad guys, and it's like this, that, and the other thing. But all that having been said, the note that I have immediately following all of those complaints was, I totally get why they did it this way, and I think I'm okay with it because it was really, really enjoyable. Like, they gave everybody their little moment. It was kind of like the javelin guy, right? He was almost like a Thor equivalent, and they were like, pretty foreigner guy with an enchanted weapon. Oh, he's wasted. Like, and then you have the ugly foreigner guy with an enchanted weapon. Oh, he's wasted. Like, it was just, the toning of it caught me off guard, but I think I settled into it as the movie went forward. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more than 6 minutes of Michael Rooker, but
there's a lot to unpack there.
This is how I operate. I talk like at length and then I sit back.
So one of the things I do, I will respond, is with the flashback. I'm very cool with the flashback. I mean, that's how like the Deadpool movie, the whole movie is basically a flashback until the end. So I'm good with the multiple timelines. That never bothered me. And I personally, this is funny. So I watched the trailers going into this. So I knew the movie was going to be about Idris Elba and the Shark and Margot Robbie and John Cena. So when that first team is being assembled, I thought, okay, like I didn't care. Like I was like, oh, that's Michael Rooker. I didn't know he was in this. And wait, that's Nathan Fillion? Because he's in nothing. He's in none of the promos. So I didn't know he was in it. So I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And he's in it. So I didn't care that the first team died, but I don't know if I'm supposed to. I think literally it's a punchline. Like it's I wouldn't even consider the movie, because you said the movie sets it up. I think of that's just the preface, right? That's just here's what we get to expect in this movie. There's going to be a lot of violence, and that one guy gets shot in the face, which was funny, and there's going to be some stuff like that. And then we have the opening credits, which was amazing. I love the way that they the blood in the water changed to the credits and stuff. Like I love all of that stylistic. Those stylistic choices that James Gunn makes. So then when we get into Team 2, you're like, oh, here's the start of the movie. And I kind of like how they do some of the other, we're in one spot for a while and we're going to stay here, and then we see the consequences of what's happening in the other scene. And then we, 8 minutes later or 8 minutes earlier, we see how we got there. So those choices I actually like a lot. Those are some of my favorite moments of the movie, honestly. But what we haven't done yet is 5-word reviews, and we all took the time to write them, and so now we're going to share them. So I think tradition states that Sam goes first.
All right.
Right?
I've got 2. And I've got one that says beautiful, bloody neon-colored lollipop.
That's what he also called me in college, so it's fine.
Yeah, and then the one I enjoy the most is Polka Dot Man Made Relevant. And I had one heck of a good time with this movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Now, it's the same review I kind of give, like Jurassic Park and things like that. This is not a perfect movie. There are some desperate flaws in this sucker. But I don't care. I had a blast. I had fun. I belly laughed in several parts of this movie. When you find out that they killed the rebel army. Oh
my gosh! Yeah,
it's like a throwaway. And even when the bunch of them were getting killed at the beginning, I howled. I thought it was brilliant, and it subverted my expectations, which is what I really love about these types of things. And I don't know. I think James Gunn did it again, and I think he did a great job with it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, yeah. The stuff that you're not expecting, like the weasel jumps out and it can't swim, like it's not intelligent enough to say, "Hey, I can't swim." And so when the boss Waller, she's like looking at her staff, she's like, no one checked to see if he could swim, and they're all like not making eye contact with her. Like that's like we can all relate to that, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was so much fun. I did have some problems. I think the if there was a scene that could be cut or changed, definitely between the Elba and his daughter, I thought was very forced, and I'm okay with swear words, especially in a rated R movie, but it just didn't feel right in that scene between those two. It felt excessive.
I guess because you've never had a shouting match of F you to your kids before.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, neither have I, obviously. It's not like I can relate to the moment either, but I'm saying. Like,
yeah. Yeah. But, other than that, I thought this was a fun, perfect movie for the end of summer. It put me in a good mood when I'm, not really wanting to go back to work and all that sort of stuff. So
sure.
I really enjoyed it.
All right. Andrew, what you got?
Well, I'm up 2 words on my count this time, as usual. Gunn pulls DC out of the muck.
Yeah.
And I think he really did. I agree with Sam. I'm not going to say the DC movies are perfect by any means, and some of them are bad. But I don't know why James Gunn just doesn't do all of the DC films. He should just do them all, because this was, like Sam said, a heck of a lot of fun. I know you're not supposed to laugh necessarily at death, but every time somebody got it in this movie, I was rolling on the floor. With the exception of maybe Flag, when his death happened, it was kind of sad.
That was
he's kind of but the rest of it, and the King Shark. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, and I honestly didn't know that was Sylvester Stallone until the very end. And my wife actually said, that was Sylvester Stallone, right? I said, no, it wasn't. And so she looked it up, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess it was. Which kind of made it even better, because I kind of always picture him as kind of a dumb oaf, but I know that's terrible. But yeah, I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I do agree that some of that stuff with the daughter probably could have been cut, and it wouldn't have taken away from the film. But
we needed something with the daughter so that we get the motivation that Waller has, the leverage Waller has over Elba, and 2, when he's bonding with the rat girl later and has the line, "You remind me of my daughter," that has weight. So we had to have something. Maybe we didn't need to have a Tarantino scream fest moment there, but yeah.
You know what I'm glad they did, and you kind of already mentioned it when Harley Quinn said she's kind of swearing off boys or guys or whatever. I'm glad that, because I was afraid when I saw the previews that they were going to set up something between Harley Quinn and Flag. It's kind of a relationship thing type. And I'm glad that they didn't go that direction. So there wasn't a love story between any characters that we really had to deal with. But yeah, I have not laughed at death so much in a long time.
All right, right on.
So there we go.
Jesse, do you have a 5-word review?
Yes, I do. So I wrote, well, Warner got their Guardians.
Yeah.
There are so many. I mean, yes, I was looking for them, right? But there are a lot of direct parallels in the two teams, right? Like Peacemaker is pretty much Drax, but with a foul mouth, which me reducing these things to an equivalent of another thing plus something isn't me saying I didn't enjoy them. John Cena's Peacemaker was a hoot. Like, the dude has timing. He is good on camera. He knows how to act. Like he did a great job. I think there's probably no actors that I didn't really enjoy. I think everybody did a pretty good job. But for me, it's very copy paste. Like if you look at it from a what am I expecting this director to do thing, the only experience I have with this director is Guardians of the Galaxy. So I'm sort of expecting this to be kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess, going in, not knowing almost anything about it. And it is a lot like that. I mean, it's snappy, catchy soundtrack, great needle drops, lots of fun action, lots of use of physical action as the timing for the comedy, right? So like instead of somebody falling down or Drax not moving, it's Pete Davidson getting shot in the face when he's clearly being an asshole anyway. And I will point out, I actually did not like Pete Davidson at all, like just on sight, until I watched his stand-up. That kid is funny, and he is very, very solid stand-up comedian. I haven't seen him on SNL or anything, but he's very funny stand-up.
I'll have to check that out.
I definitely recommend it. He is self-aware in a way that makes him much more tolerable. So going into it kind of expecting a fun Guardians-esque ride, I definitely got that. And there were so many moments where I was like, okay, here's this character from Guardians, here's this dynamic from Guardians. That didn't take away from the movie for me. It's still the most fun I've had watching a DC movie since I saw Wonder Woman, and it is probably one of the few DC movies where I could tell people like, yeah, it's definitely worth your time to check it out. You're going to have a lot of fun. I laughed several times, like out loud, to myself with headphones on, which always feels like a weird thing to do. Like you laugh and then you realize nobody anywhere knows why you're laughing. So you just kind of look a little bit insane. But the bright spot of this movie, I think for me, is definitely Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I have never seen her play that character before. And the depiction of her particular psychosis as like flowers and rainbows and butterflies pouring out of people that she kills, I think is brilliant. And she plays that character with a ton of depth, like way more depth than the character might deserve, like, at first glance, right? Like this is a dumb side character that was not meant for much, but she gives her such depth and weight and realness. I think like you can see the trauma in her when she's struggling to maintain her grip on reality. That back and forth argument about Milton, like when it was happening, I'm like, okay, this is really, really dumb. Like, I don't like this scene. I do not like it. And then later on, when she told Idris Elba, "I'll always be your friend, Milton," I was like, okay, that's a good payoff.
That's a payoff.
He's like, that's not my name. And she's like, dude, we just had a conversation for like 3 hours about how your name is Milton. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is well done. Like, if that's what I had to sit through to get that payoff, then I'm fully willing to do it. Like, I was very impressed with Margot Robbie this entire movie, honestly. And I mean, Idris Elba, you can't complain about Idris Elba. The dude rocks every role that he's in. And that helmet was very, very cool. I suspect we will see a large influx of douchebags riding around on crotch rockets with that design painted on their helmet in the next 16 months.
It was very, very reminiscent of Star-Lord, and in that
animation
manner that it can just kind of come in the animation, sure.
Yeah, and I just, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it. I love Peter Capaldi. Like, to even put Peter Capaldi in like a throwaway role, I think is brilliant. I really, really enjoy him. And I, like you guys have all said, the movie knows what it is. It revels in what it is, and it pretty well executes that for the most part. I'm in the same boat as well, though, where it's like I'm not without complaints and I'm not without criticisms. But I did find myself laughing, enjoying the movie almost despite myself, because going in, I was like, I don't know anything about this. I know that Margot Robbie is in it and that Idris Elba is in it, and that's pretty much enough for me. So it was like, I hope something happens that I'm also interested in, and luckily it was. Now, I will close out my second 15-minute chunk of talking in one long breath by saying what I really want, though. Like, at the end of this movie, the thing I want the most is not the next chapter of Suicide Squad. Honestly, I want the Starro movie that is just Starro floating in space for like 1,000 years of just desolate sadness and being happy, intertwined with, eons of happiness, just looking at the stars. Like, I want that movie. I want Starro out in space dealing with stuff that we have no idea about, just floating like a crazy giant monster in space, because that sounds cool. But, if this is how we have to get Starro, who I didn't know about before this movie, I'm grateful for it. I had a ton of fun with Starro, and I think it was an excellent final boss character for this movie.
To your point specifically about the Harley Quinn and her depth, I actually think it's worth you going and watching, because it's on HBO. I think it's on HBO. You should go watch Birds of Prey. I think. Yeah. I think, honestly, that movie helps this character in this movie, because that movie is all about her demons and her issues and the way she thinks. And Margot Robbie, even stated for this movie, she liked the fact that this movie wasn't Harley-centric. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, she's like a tertiary character, because really the movie is about Idris Elba and John Cena. Those are the two heavies of the film. Yeah. And she's kind of the third. And I think she's more suited for that, because all she has to do is be a chaos agent. Come in and do some crazy, honestly, I about wept myself when she shot that guy. I did not see that coming at all. Yeah. And it literally gave me the most surprising and the most emotional scene. Yeah. Because then she gives this monologue where she's like, "Look, man,
while he's dying on the ground.
She's like, I'm killing you because I'm into you. Like, if I'm into you, that's a bad sign. So I'm just going to kill you." Like, because you're gorgeous. That's some growth, man.
But also, you're also a terrible person that kills children. Like, I can't be down with that. So,
I would argue that she's definitely a heavy in this movie. It's just that she doesn't need to be featured to be a heavy, right? Like, she takes out 2 of the 3 main bad guys in the movie, and one of them is a kaiju. Like, she is. I feel like this is probably the most fun I'll have watching that character in a DC movie, but I'm not opposed to going back and checking out Birds of Prey.
You should watch it. Yeah. It's not.
She's a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. Like you mentioned before, she went into the royal palace as a prisoner and came out. Came out just. Just that amazing. Like you said, the flowers and rainbows, and then drops down. Yeah, hey guys, what you doing?
Yeah, we're coming to perfect. We're coming to rescue you. Oh, I can go back in if you want.
Her offer to go back in, is played as a joke, but she delivers it with a level of sincerity that's like, oh, she means that. She meant like she would go back. She would walk back in there. She doesn't care. Like, she'll actually walk back in there and wait for them. Like, that's really sweet. I appreciated that big time.
And then it adds to the level of how insane Peacemaker is, where he's willing to shoot the lady making coffee. Like, there's only one subject in there, and I got a beat on her. It's like, she's making coffee. Leave her alone. Good gracious.
Dude, he was wearing jean shorts with a braided belt. I laughed so hard at his jean shorts and a braided belt. That was
I love that they draw attention also to the fact that his name is Peacemaker. He's killing more than anybody else in the
film. They could have called him Team America Man, right? Like, it's the same trope, right? But they the thing that I think that they did really well was they set you up to not really like any of these characters, but to pick ones out to root for, right? Yeah. Because there were certain characters that, because none of these people are likable. They're not likable people. They're terrible people. But some of them are relatable too, right? So it's like that's why they have, like you had mentioned, Sean, that's why they have his daughter. Now, I would argue the daughter is also there almost primarily as a way to get Waller out of the picture, because that's the thing that causes all her employees to be like, oh, yeah, maybe this isn't how we should run things, you know? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you know, Molecule Man went through puberty and is kind of stuck in like this eternal hell puberty version of a cursed superpower. And so it's like, yeah, everybody knows what going through puberty is like. That sucked. And, you know, so they give you these relatable things. But it I don't know. The movie, there was definitely some stuff in the movie that made me go, okay, James Gunn is doing this because he would not be allowed to in a Marvel movie. And when he conceived this movie, he was probably freshly pissed at them. Yeah. So he was kind of lashing out like, okay, well,
there's some anger in there for sure. Yeah.
I'll give the secretary a huge rack and I'll barely cover it. Oh, and I'll have characters' faces explode. Oh, I'll have them talk about sex. Oh, I'll have them say the F word. You know, it's like, okay, like some of it felt like it's there for the sake of it. And then the kind of stuff that you touch on in a Marvel movie, but that you don't revel in, like laughing at somebody's trauma, right? Like they do that throughout this movie and it's a little bit uncomfortable. But in a Marvel movie, they could do it if they made one joke about it and then moved on, right? So like, you know, they do that a lot with Rocket, for example, in the movie Guardians. They'll, you know, oh yeah, everybody you know is gone, or like, oh, you don't even know your own past, you know? And it's like, yeah, that's not something you should casually hurl at somebody. That could be devastating, right? But they move right past that into, you know, fun soundtrack thing. This movie spends more time with it, and I get that it's a grittier, more like darker toned movie. But as a person who watches things for entertainment, that took some of my entertainment factor down personally. Overall, like I said, though, I still definitely enjoyed the movie. On that note, I could have done without the Mortal Kombat fatality camera on the guy whose name is literally American flag, like Rick as in American flag. But I fully understand why they did it, because it's like you've got a bunch of super powered villains here. You know, you got to make sure that people know, no, this character is not coming back. Like, which we kind of, I would also lean into like really with the John Cena post credit scene, but my complaints are small. They're not non-existent, but they didn't ruin the movie for me, I guess is how I would say it.
You have to have the John Cena post-credit scene because he's getting his own show.
Right. So which he got shot in the neck, and like, okay. They're going to need to be like, well, also he's got whatever healing or super soldier or something. Because like you can't just be yoked and survive a shot to the freaking aorta, I don't think.
As far as I don't know. I mean, as far as we know, he's just strong and insane.
He was too angry to die.
Yeah, he loved America too much or something. I don't know.
I love peace so much.
Yeah, I love peace so much. I'm willing to kill every man, woman, and child to attain it. You know, I mean, he's that. My 5-word review was fun violence with some heart. Fun violence with some heart. I will say, as far as the characters not being very likable, I think we all like an asshole like Idris Elba's character. I mean, some of our favorite characters in Marvel, I mean, we all love Tony Stark, and he's kind of an asshole most of the time. Now, he's not this level asshole. It's a, you know, snark and sarcastic and a little bit of a douche, but, you know, Idris Elba's full on, he'll kill you for $1 kind of guy. But the Rat Girl, you know, she's the heart and soul of the movie, and you know, she's the nice happy thing in the movie, and you know, anyway. So I
still don't understand how she was thrown in that prison. I know it was what, a bank robbery or some sort of, they considered the rats to be a weapon, right? But at the same point, I'm like, it just seems strange to me that level, even though Superman almost died according to this, right? Yeah. With Elba, but yet, anyway, it just seemed,
the prison
the prison was weird to me.
Yeah, the idea that his daughter, who shoplifted at 16, could be in the same prison as a man shark is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, she used it for leverage. I don't,
They probably have different floors of the prison, like.
Or they might have just, they considered her almost like a supervillain or a superpower that she had, but apparently wasn't it some sort of technology she was using? Anyway.
Yeah, it was a technology that Taika Waititi had given her to control the rats. So it's like, I mean, Ant-Man doesn't have power; he's a suit, and he has a little thingy that controls the ants. So it's the same thing. It's just a little magic wand that she uses to. It looked like a PS4
motion controller.
Motion controller. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway. A few notes I have, and we'll get into some clips. I have a few. Actually, I don't have a lot, mainly because there's not a lot of dialogue that doesn't have the F word in it. So there's that. But my first note was, wow, this movie jumped straight into it, which I really liked. I liked that we just got straight into it and that we didn't need to know all that.
And then the bird is picking his brain.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty great.
As he's floating on the ocean. I thought, I giggled at that too.
I wrote, haha, the weasel is dead. And then I wrote, Nathan Fillion is on the poster but dies in the first 5 minutes. And so then when he said, 8 hours later or a day later or whatever, I thought, oh, here's a chance to get more Nathan Fillion. Nope.
Nope.
No, he's not there. He's still just slapping people awkwardly in the face with his floaty arms.
Well, and actually, the weasel is not dead.
Well, yeah.
We got the most pointless after credit scene ever with him. Like, I don't care about the weasel.
Yeah.
Like, give me the action. Give me the John Cena. Like, I don't care. Like, give me John Cena. That's fine if you're gonna set that up, even though he clearly got shot in the neck. Like, I don't care about the weasel.
It's the same level
or
as
do something. Oh, go ahead.
I would say it's the same level as Captain America at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, where he's like, do we have to do these anymore? Like, he's making fun of it, of the end.
But at least that was a fun, like, oh, hey, it's Captain America. That's the actual actor that plays him, and it's but like I think what they should have done was killed the weasel. Like, he should have woke up and been like, oh, I didn't drown, and then like taken 2 steps and got shot.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. I feel like they could have done more with it to make it funnier, like one more like gut punch. To get us laughing.
Without that, it's kind of like there is no arguable reason to put that in the movie.
I think it was literally because the mocap for the weasel was Sean Gunn. So they're like, Sean's like, hey, can I get one more scene? Yeah, okay, there you go. You can.
He was already on screen in the movie with no makeup. Yeah.
You're already in your dot suit. We'll just go ahead and have you lay on the beach and get you up and just run away awkwardly.
Oh, and I believe the translation for the gentleman's club that they were looking to go to meet the Thinker was the nice little, and then I'm going to put this in quotes, kitty. I believe that was the translation of the name of the club.
No, okay. Did you see Did you see the Marvel connection in the club? Anybody?
Yeah, Mantis was dancing.
Yeah, Mantis.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, I did notice that they showed us one dancer's face for some reason, but I didn't recognize that it was Mantis.
That's Mantis. Yeah, it was her. That's why she got.
I didn't catch that either.
Yeah, they got 3 seconds of her because they're like, the director's like, see, I can put my friends in movies too. Yeah. So.
Was she? I'm gonna have to go back and watch this now. Was she dressed as Mantis, or
no?
Was
she's just a dancer. She's just one of the exotic dancers up on the table.
Okay,
that's why you didn't recognize her. She had regular eyes and no antenna.
No antenna
that are used to help her not bunk her head on the doors as she walks through.
Yeah.
Let's see. Wow, they killed a village of friendlies because the bad lady said kill everyone, and then like you said, they just kind of make a joke about it, like, what happened to my team? Nothing. Didn't see anybody. There's no one out here. Like, they're making a joke of it. They killed 30 people.
I loved that so much.
It was funny.
That was probably when I laughed the most, because during the whole scene, I mean, they're killing all these people, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. They're taking out all these guys, and then they're just like, they find out that they've just killed the wrong people, people that could have helped them.
Well, the moment that I started to think this doesn't feel right is when he killed the woman that's just doing dishes, and then my other thought was they're not being quiet. How has the entire village not heard all of the violence happening and come running? Like that guy taking a bath. How did he not hear all of the stuff happening? Like,
well, none of them were on guard. It's like they were all just on like the army version of house duty. Like they were washing clothes, they were hanging out, they were making tea.
This is gonna sound mean. They all sucked, so they kind of deserved to die. You know, like not one of them thought not to scream, "Hey, here comes some," whatever. Like it was just whatever. It was pretty funny though. It's called Project Starfish because it's an actual starfish. I wrote that. It's kind of fun. I already mentioned that. Let's see. Oh, how do you want to show that the bad guy is a really bad guy? Have him burn birds. We don't really need that scene. We just need to show that he's a bad guy. So he burns
which honestly, maybe I'm a bad person, but I didn't really care that he burned birds.
I didn't care either.
I thought it was going to something to like. I thought Harley was going to get upset, or I thought it had something to do with a future scene in the movie. Otherwise, it's just we already know he's a bad guy. We don't need to know anymore.
It parallels him to the Thinker because they're both cruel to animals at whatever they're both willing to attain power at whatever cost, and they both happen to demonstrate it in the same movie by being cruel to animals. It's just that one of them is being cruel to an animal from outer space that's 3 stories tall.
Yeah. Okay. Last few notes here. It's weird hearing the Polka Dot Man without his Russian accent. Because, from Ant-Man.
I think I saw him first on The League, and he played a mortician who was into non-conventional pornography.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I think I remember that too. That's right.
I believe that was him.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't forget that guy's face.
One last note that I have, not one last one, but one of the last few notes here is I love the backstory we get on the Ratcatcher 2 and how she's telling the story, because a lot of times what happens is she tells the story and we as the audience go to the physical place. So all we hear is her telling the story and see the thing. But in this case, having the story told on the glass of the bus behind her, we get context, we get the visual context of what's happening, and we still get to see her act. We get to see her emotional. Like, I thought that was such a brilliant thing because we get both worlds, and I thought that we need more of those moments. Like, I know that we're getting a lot more recently, like especially with when movies have cell phones, where if someone gets a text message, instead of showing the camera over the shoulder looking at the phone, which is hard to read, they just put a little, message bubble in the air, which I'm fine with. Like, it's like this is what that reminds me of, is that we're not wasting time going somewhere else. We're staying in the moment. We're staying here so that she can act, we can see her act, and we can see the others around her act while also seeing the story. I thought it was brilliant. I really did. It was just...
It lets her focus on her feelings from telling the story. And we still get, to your point, though, it's a great way to put them all in the same environment because they're experiencing a story. She is reliving an experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's an excellent way to illustrate that. It's a very, very good point.
Last couple notes. Even the tech staff sucks. And then about 10 notes later, okay, the tech team isn't totally bad. But now that they're on board, how about some air support? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it felt weird. Like, they felt like they could do more for the team than to give them MapQuest directions.
I felt like it was almost a direct parallel with the other 2 villains, right? Where it was like, look at the animal cruelty. And then you have Waller treating all these criminals like animals. Like, to her, they're an expendable resource, right? She's not thinking of them as people that could do a thing. She's like, these are tools to get this job done, which is just how, the general sees Starro and how the Thinker sees Starro, So it's like, there's your parallel there. So it's like, they're not it's not like they're saying, hey, we need to make sure everybody lives. It's like they're just going, hey, let's at least not treat them like, let's not waste these resources at least. Like, let's try with what we have. My guess is that they're very limited on what they're allowed to do. I was a little surprised that at the end they were just like, also give me a helicopter. And they were like, okay, here. Like, you just held them all to like ransom and self-disavowed, and you want to disappear, but also come pick me up. Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was just one of those. The moments for me was like the after the golf club to the head, and they're like, "All right, back to work." I was expecting them to go, "Okay, how can we help them?" Well, like that little room felt like they had this. They had more power than the Pentagon, right? Like, we don't know what division they are, but like.
Oh, maybe that's them specifically then who sent the helicopter, because otherwise they wouldn't have a ride.
Well, Amanda Waller was awake at that point, making the deal with Elba.
Well, that's
so
true.
Maybe she was like, "All right, I'll let you go. I'll give you a ride off the island." But from that point, we're gonna just. I mean, there's still the plot point that those little explosive things are still in their necks, and so they can still GPS track them wherever they go. But I just felt like, hey, we're gonna have to battle this giant thing, and I don't know. Can you task a C-130 over here or something like anything, right? Is there an aircraft carrier nearby that can scramble a couple F-18s that we can shoot this thing with something? Anyway,
yeah. In this DC world, and I'm asking because I'm not familiar. Is kaiju not a world level threat? Like, do other governments not go, okay, I know we're not friendly, but that could threaten the entire world, so we'll come help you. Like, that's a good point, Sean. Yeah. Couldn't she have called someone and been like, hey, giant monster?
I don't think, well, I mean, once they realized there is a giant monster, I don't think there was enough time for the nations of the world to unite. I mean, if there was enough time, then Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, they're going to have to show up. So obviously they had to resolve the issue quickly. It was just, like I said, the tech team, they hit Amanda Waller in the head with a putting iron or a putter, and then their only thing to do now is go left. Make it, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it's fine. Oh no, Dot Man, that made me sad. This island,
like we saw it though, right? They telegraphed it. You knew he was gonna die.
Yeah, but it was still sad. I was like, oh, that's sad. That island has a rat problem. Oh my god.
Yeah.
There are more rats on that island than people. And my last note is probably the grossest boss fight I've ever seen. My wife had to close her eyes multiple times in this movie. Mostly when it came to King Shark. When he ripped that dude in half, that was rough.
Yeah.
That was loved that shot.
Though. I mean, it was a great shot.
God, it was amazing.
But my wife was like, "Oh my God, what are you making me watch?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was happening." And so, like, when he's like eating a dude, and it was, she's like, "Can I watch?"
Num.
Yeah. I was like, eh. Like when they, and then when the Starro pulled Doctor Who apart, as soon as he got them all wrapped up, I said, "You might want to close your eyes." And so she did. And then once he got squished up against the window, I'm like, "Yeah, you're good." So anyway, all right, you ready for a few clips here?
Sure, let's do it.
This to me is a direct call to, and I think we've talked about this because we reviewed Infinity War. And I think it's a widely known secret, or just known, maybe it's not a secret, but it's known that the Russo brothers let other directors, like James Gunn, direct his team in that movie. So like when you have the Guardians of the Galaxy part, when Thor shows up, that's being directed by James Gunn. And so it would feel like it was part of their universe adding into this universe. So when we had this scene, it reminded me of the scene with Thor when he says they're going to Never or wherever they're going. And he says, yeah, and he's like, "That's a made-up word," and then Thor says, "All words are made up," and I love that line. So this reminds me of that. Okay, here we go.
What does TDK stand for?
What?
Your name is TDK, correct?
Yeah.
And it stands for what?
Stands for me. That's what a name is.
Your name is letters?
Times and letters, dickhead.
Okay. This is a little dick measuring contest happening.
He does exactly what I do, but better. I always hit my targets dead center.
I hit them more in the center.
You can't hit something more in the center?
I use smaller bullets.
What?
They go inside your bullet holes without even touching the side.
Next.
I will say this. John Cena, I think, and again, I've not seen every one of his movies, but this is some of the best acting I think I've seen from him.
Yeah.
Like,
he fit this role really, really well.
So good. It's so good. Like,
it's very dry but like, yeah, this is his persona, I think. And I think it's great.
I was explaining to one of my coworkers today, who is a listener. So, hi, Jeff, that I can't use the exact words I used because I don't want to get hate mail. But what I will say is that he's a one note in this movie, but it's a great note. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a huge emotional range like Margot Robbie or even
Dave Bautista.
Yeah, he's kind of yeah. I akin him more to U.S. Agent in the Winter Soldier movies.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, he's that. Just he's all star spangled up and ready to kill anybody that he can. Okay, time for the line. You all knew I was going to get this bit.
And I've decided that you should eat a big bag of dicks. How's that?
You're being facetious. But if this whole beach was completely covered in dicks, and somebody said I'd eat every dick until the beach was clean for liberty, I would say no problemo.
Why would someone put penises all over the beach?
Who knows why madmen do what they do?
I love that last bit. If I remember, I might cap that out just to have that line forever. Who knows why mad men do what they do? I like that. This is, I just realized all of my clips, except when Nathan Fillion was talking, is John Cena saying things. So here we go. Here's a little bit more John Cena.
No one likes to show off.
Unless what they're showing off is dope as
That's true.
There, I had to edit out the F-bombs, but yeah. That is true. Okay. I accidentally wrote Bacon of Freedom, but this is supposed to be the Beacon of Freedom. So here you go. Here's the Bacon of Freedom.
It's not a toilet seat. It's a beacon of freedom.
Oh, he's great. John Cena is so good in this movie. And he's so good that when the flip happens at the end, you really hate him. But
yeah. And you hate it because you want to pull for this guy, right? You want him to be a good guy, and very obviously is not. He is a bad man.
Time for this.
And now for some more bad news. Ready?
I got some trivia. I got all the trivia. Okay, I don't have all the trivia. There's like 9,000 bits of trivia in this movie. So go to IMDb and read for about an hour because I spent about 30 minutes just pulling what I got. As for how James Gunn, here's one thing I will say this. You know how I love to give IMDb shit, especially in their trivia section, because anyone can edit it. The trivia in this multiple times felt like it was a paragraph that they had just taken a sentence out and then inserted it as one trivia. So this feels like this is the second part of a story. So as for how James Gunn got Sylvester Stallone to voice the role, like someone asked a question there, how did you get Sylvester Stallone to voice the role? Well, as for how James Gunn got Sylvester Stallone to voice the role, it didn't take a whole lot of convincing. James Gunn said to him, quote, "I wrote this for you in the Suicide Squad. It won't take too much of your time." Stallone replied, I can't do a Stallone accent, so I'm just going to reply, "Oh yeah?" To which Gunn said, "Yeah, it's a big kind of chubby human eating shark." To which Stallone said, "Anything for you, brother." So, there you go. Idris Elba, already mentioned that, Will Smith part. Let's see. John Cena described Peacemaker as a douchebag Captain America.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much perfect.
I saw this video about a week ago on, I think honestly it was on TikTok, to honor Nathan Fillion. His home city of Edmonton, which is located in Alberta, Canada, for Americans that don't know that, they officially renamed their city hall to the Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion for the opening week of the Suicide Squad movie.
Nice.
Now, that is actually in addition to and because of, there is a fan of Nathan Fillion who started an actual petition to have I believe it's an upcoming space or building named that.
Yeah.
And so the city hall was like, oh, we got to capitalize on the popularity of this actual petition and you know, take advantage of this publicity opportunity. Very, very cool.
Yeah. See, I didn't know it was City Hall because the video, they literally they ask all of the cast would they sign this petition. I thought that it was like a park, like it was a park in front of City Hall, and that it was gonna be called Civilian Pavilion. Like that's what it was just gonna be called. And then the fan created the whatever you call it to have it named the Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion. That's just fun to say.
And then on Twitter, Nathan Fillion asked, are they going to paint it vermilion?
Yes, he did ask that, yeah. Lastly, James Gunn said in several interviews that he received much more creative freedom during the filming of this than of Guardians of the Galaxy movies from the MCU. There's various forms of that trivia, about 7 different times in the listing on IMDb. Basically, people want you to know that he had more fun making this movie than the Marvel movies because Warner Brothers left him alone. The director of the first Suicide Squad movie even called him and said, good luck. And because Warner Brothers, you know, came in and made him do hours of reshoots.
Do you think that some of the Marvel movies would be better had the directors been given complete freedom, or would it have ended up more like what DC is, not a cohesive universe?
I think that as long as the story ends the way it needs to help move the overall plot along, how we get from A to B, I think is kind of irrelevant. As long as
I personally think that they're learning to do a combination, right? Because they, to your point, like I think the guy's name was Edgar Wright, who left Ant-Man, right?
Yeah.
Because he wanted to do something, they said, and then Scott Derrickson also left Doctor Strange, or maybe Doctor Strange 2. So they also got rid of Kenneth Branagh to do the Thor movies, right? So they had this very set structure where they were like, okay, guys, these movies need to fit into this narrative. And then I feel like with Guardians and with Thor Ragnarok in particular, they learned and realized, oh, if you find a director whose style fits into this universe, you can give them creative freedom inside of these constraints without it feeling so constraining. Because I feel like if you watch Ragnarok, right, or if you watch Guardians, it's like those two movies definitely feel different than other Marvel movies, and it's because of who directed them. So Marvel feels like they're kind of going more into this, like, not genre piece, but like a little bit more freedom for stylistic choices with their directors. And supposedly that's a big thing with the Eternals. They keep saying we gave the director tons of freedom to shoot it how she wanted, and this, that, and the other thing. So it's probably both at this point. But yeah, I think to your point, that might be why it feels so disjointed for DC.
Yeah. I feel like, though, looking at like Ragnarok, as an example, I felt like that was I enjoy that movie probably more than any other Marvel movie, but I don't feel like it fits in with the rest of them as far as style. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not. I don't think it does by design. I don't think it's meant to fit in with the rest of them by style. I think it's meant to say that style is not what people want from Thor. This is the style people want from Thor. There's a great episode of a podcast called Them's Fightin' Nerds that you could listen to, and I go into extensive detail about this whole thing.
Thank you for the plug. And he really does, and it's a fun thing. I don't know. you mentioned, what it would. I don't know. I don't want to get into the whole DC Marvel thing again for the 11th time, whatever. Just I simply think that the problem is it's the same problem that Star Wars has, is that Kathleen Kennedy was not given enough power or whatever for Star Wars, and that's why Episodes 7, 8, and 9 suffer, because it's not a continuing story. And I think that's the problem with the Batman, or not the Batman, but the DC, is that it felt like that they came out with Man of Steel, and that was the first one. And I thought it was a fine movie. It was not great, but it was fine. And then it felt like DC had to try to catch up to what Marvel was doing, because at that point, I think Avengers had just come out and made $1 billion, and they were already aiming towards Avengers 2, and so that's why I think we talked about it when we did Batman versus Superman, that it felt like they rushed to that movie too soon. And I know, Andrew, one of your biggest complaints of that movie is that they used the subtitle Dawn of Justice. If you take that part out of the movie, then there's no expectation that this is the precursor to the Justice League, because it gives you more freedom. But anyway, and then now they're making another Batman. And I did see on Twitter, like just the other day, that Ben Affleck has agreed to do another Batman, to reprise his role in another Batman thing. So
I think it was in a series, though.
I don't know. I don't know. I
think I read that somewhere, that it was a series instead of a film.
I mean, aren't we going to need to have Ben Affleck to have some kind of whatever the next Justice League thing is, right? We have to have.
I guess
we have to have some resolution to that movie, because it gives us such a cliffhanger.
I'm sorry, the 4-hour movie ended on a cliffhanger?
It ends on a huge cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's the kind of cliffhanger. Actually, that's not true at all. I was going to say it's kind of like the cliffhanger that Avengers 1 ends on, by teasing you Thanos, but it would be more. It's more like what the cliffhanger at the end of. No. It's a cliffhanger. I don't want to.
It's okay.
I don't want to really tell you what it is.
I appreciate that.
There's.
I'm a spoiler jerk, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's a 4-hour movie. Yeah, it's a commitment, but I mean, just break it up into sections. Is what I did. I watched it I watched it like it was 2 movies.
Yeah. I need a palate cleanser after this movie. I'm not watching a 4-hour movie, Sean.
Well, I'm not saying you should do it tomorrow. I'm just saying,
okay.
At some point, I would watch Birds of Prey before I would watch the Justice League. But I do think at some point you should watch it, just so that you can get some of the references and whatever. But I don't know. I think it's kind of. I liked it, but I also didn't hate the first one. I didn't hate the original Justice League. I thought it was fine. I liked it more than Batman versus Superman, and Andrew knows my contempt for that movie. But there's a really great podcast where we even had a guest or a listener. He paid money to come on the show and have me complain about that movie to him. So I don't know if Alan used to listen to our show, but thank you for Alan. That was very lovely.
He's probably really pissed that he had to pay, and then all these other guests we've had on
get to just complain for free.
Yeah, that's true. There is that. Well, I mean, yeah. Jesse will eventually pay me in stickers.
It's true.
So, all right, that's it. I have nothing more to say. That's not true at all. I have this to say.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Top 3. I'm gonna be honest with you. We had struggle. That's not a good sentence.
We had struggle.
We struggled. We have struggled. I'm gonna talk like the shark thing. On this top 3, because none of us have seen enough Idris Elba movies. None of us. James Gunn's only made like 4 movies. And so we decided to come up with kaiju, basically movies with giant kaiju that you have to fight at the end or whatever. So I'm sure at some point one of us will mention at least one of the Godzilla movies, which is fine. Jesse, I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that deeply. I'm going to start with Godzilla King of the Monsters mostly because, I mean, it's like you said, one of us has to mention a Godzilla movie, and of all of the Godzilla movies that I have seen, that movie felt like it got the scale closest to correct for me. The appearance of Ghidorah as like this like mountain range spanning beast was just so well done. And the whole movie, I feel like it's the closest we've gotten of an American Godzilla movie where they get that we don't care about the human characters. We just want to see monsters. They still made us spend some time with those human characters, but it was overall a pretty fun movie. It was dumb, but it was fun. And it looked amazing. The visuals were gorgeous. I also I have to mention Pacific Rim just because I actually had good fun with Pacific Rim. Like it's the same thing. It wasn't anything special. It was a dumb movie. It was the marketing for that movie was almost like the marketing in quotes for Snakes on a Plane, right? Like you don't
knew what
need,
you were getting into.
Yeah, you don't need marketing for that. That you show giant robot, you show monster. Oh, I know what this movie is about. I could probably tell you the plot too. I bet there's a guy who was this close to retirement in that movie. So as a genre, I have not seen a ton of kaiju movies. But my third one, I think I'm actually going to put this movie in there because this movie is not a kaiju movie per se, right? It has a kaiju in it. And I feel like it's done in ways that aren't new, but it's done in ways that are effective. I still felt for Starro. I was like, man, that poor Starro. Like, Starro just wants to float in space and look at the stars. Starro doesn't want to control everybody on Earth, but if you put him on Earth, that's what he's going to do, right? Like, he would rather just float in space. And what a fun, old school comic book design for a monster. Right, so basic. I mean, it reminded me of watching Futurama, right? When they had the brain slugs, it was just like this is so basic. It got some face hugger vibes to it, and it just still effective, right? Still effective because if you saw that, you'd be creeped out, like
especially that giant eye staring at you on the face of some person. Yeah,
and they did a great job of not making it just a suction cup that attaches to you, right? Like it's a mouth with a lot of teeth and tenderly looking things that would reach down your throat. So the body horror aspect of it was very effective. I also appreciated seeing Molecule Man's mom as a kaiju.
Yeah,
so
that was pretty funny.
I personally, I felt like that joke was overplayed in the movie, but that moment, it worked for me really well. So those are my top three kaiju movies.
All right. Sam.
All right. I've got my number 3 is the shark from the Meg.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Right. My number 2 is the dragons from Reign of Fire.
Okay, yeah. I'm good.
And obviously Jurassic Park. I don't know if you can call them kaiju. They're just not quite big enough. But in the same vein, I thought it was fun to think of the graboids from Tremors as the giant monster that comes to eat you.
Sure. No, I'm with you. I like I love Reign of Fire, so I'm definitely on board with that. I jacked up Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, I'm all for that. So I mean, are you going to use? I mean, honestly, Sam, you could probably use like Jurassic World as your Jurassic Park connection because that big dinosaur at the end is kind of one. I mean, it's bigger than the others and. It's not quite a real dinosaur or whatever, I mean, it kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, but I always try to do the first Jurassic Park in most of my...
I understand. No, I get you. Yeah. Not the one where she does the talking velociraptor or where she does the not ballet, the uneven bars to
gymnastics. The gymnastics.
Hey, that was no less contrived than 90% of the crap we see now. Like at least they spent time saying that little girl was a gymnast and that she would be missing her gym meet to go to the dinosaur island.
That girl I'm just saying, in her pants, running from these raptors. In no way, shape, or form is she going to be brave enough to do a gymnastics move to.
But the mathematician is fine with it because he's seen it before. I don't know, man. Come on.
Well, I'm not. Yeah.
I mean, again, they wrote
poor directorial choices in that movie.
I mean, let's agree on that. That's definitely true.
Yeah, and honestly, Michael Crichton only wrote the book the second book because.
Or the movie.
Well, yeah, because the studio was like, dude, we'll pay you $1 billion. It was that, but it was a lot of money. And he's like, okay, fine.
It would be stupid not to write another one.
I'll bring back a dead character just to do it. Why not? You know, so I would say this is the part where I would read our Twitter, responses, but we didn't get any. But in fairness, I posted on Twitter while we were recording, so it's not like people had a lot of time. And Jesse, you're usually the one of the people that always comments, so
I do try.
I can't really give you a shout out if you're already here. So
I'm sure you can. Go ahead. I'll take a shout out. That's
Jesse from the Sudden But Inevitable podcast says these 3 movies that he already said. Okay.
There is one on Facebook though. Did you check that?
Oh no, that's right. Stephen Honeycutt said something. Oh, thank you, Sam. Stephen, our good friend Stephen Honeycutt, who has his own new show out called Obscurity Now.
Oh, nice.
Oh gosh, were you not on with us? Yeah, you were there, Sam, when he did the police movie. Yeah. Yeah, that's his new podcast is called Obscurity Now. Steven wrote the Pacific Rim, Godzilla versus Megalodon, and Kong Skull Island. Well, there you go.
There's a lot of good monsters on Kong Skull Island.
Well, that's actually my number 3. So Kong Skull Island is number 3. My honorable mention actually is Independence Day 2, where the giant alien queen comes down to Earth, and she's kind of a kaiju. I mean, that movie's not great, but it's kind of fun, and I had a good time with it.
I haven't seen that.
It's fine. It's not great. It's fine.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I mean, really, the only spoiler I can give you is Will Smith isn't in it.
Oh.
But everyone else from the first one is. I guess Adam Baldwin's not in it either, but
is Brent Spiner in it? I
think he is. I'm pretty sure he's in it. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, he's in it. And he's still just as crazy as ever. So my number 3 is going to be Kong Skull Island. I liked that movie. I thought it was fun. My number 2 is actually going to be Rampage, with The Rock.
Another one that I want to see. I haven't seen.
It's fun. It's a good time. I liked it. I thought it was kind of whatever. It was it's fine.
The game that movie was based on was very fun.
Sure.
Well, I would have been 9 or 10 when that came out. That Rampage game.
Yeah, same. You were like
through the city.
You were like 35 at the time, right? And my number 1, and I don't know if Mike still listens. I'll make sure to tag him on Facebook. But Godzilla Final Wars. Jesse, have you seen that one?
That is the one where Godzilla fights the American version of 2000 Godzilla, correct?
Along with fighting everything else, yes.
With everything else. Yeah. So actually, yes, I have seen that one, and that one is very fun.
It is so fun.
My first introduction to Godzilla was actually Toho Godzilla. Like I watched that before I had seen any marketing for the original American Godzilla with
Matthew Broderick.
The character's name is Nick Tatopoulos. Thank you, Matthew Broderick. But my grandmother had like a movie of that recorded on a tape for some reason. Like it couldn't have been hers, but it was at her house, and that was my introduction to Godzilla. So nice. Yeah, I went all through Mechagodzilla and all that stuff. But yes, Final Wars was like kind of bananas.
It's a lot of fun, and we also reviewed it for the podcast.
Very cool.
And that 2000 Godzilla, the American one, I saw that in the theaters twice.
Yep.
I did. I liked it. Andrew, this is where you come in and level the playing field with all of your awesomeness.
Well, I have an honorable mention only because I don't know that it's really a kaiju, but the Iron Giant to me sticks out as one of these just, massive machines.
I guess he was a bad guy for a second, wasn't he?
Yeah, for about a hot minute he was,
Yeah, so that could... Yeah, Mechagodzilla is a robot, so...
Yeah. But I had at number 3, Monsters by Gareth Edwards that we saw for the podcast a good while back.
Yeah.
I had Jurassic World as my number 2, and then my number 1, I can't remember if it's the second one or the third one, it may even have been the first one. I'm just too tired to think right now. But How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, with the giants.
There's actually two giant dragons in one. There's one in one and one in two. So the one in one, Toothless, specifically Toothless and Hiccup fight, and that one's referred to as the Green Death. And then you have the Ice Spitter Alpha that's in How to Train Your Dragon 2.
I think that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, that giant Ice Spitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are cool. No, those are good. Those are both. Those. See, Andrew comes in with just nails it as he does every week. Time for this.
Wait, what's supposed to happen?
This is where we give this movie a score. I have been told by a little Twitter account that Jesse has embraced the decimal. So,
nice.
It was a spite decimal. It's not embracing it. I'm kidding. I love the decimal.
He's doing again. I have to give him. This joke only works if you're listening to this episode and have also listened to the episode I was on Jesse's show, where
actually, Sean, that's not true because every time that our decimal goes to more than one place, I reference you. So anybody that has listened to Sudden But Inevitable over either of our two seasons knows exactly what this joke is.
Oh, that's great. I didn't see, and you have to forgive me. I haven't listened to. I listened to the first episode of the first half of the first episode of your two-parter of your new show, this new season that I'll let you talk about here in a second, because you're doing Cowboy Bebop. I haven't watched Cowboy Bebop in 10 years, and I
will not forgive you.
And I don't have a way to watch it right now. So as I'm listening to that episode, you're making references, and I was laughing because Ricky. It felt like Ricky hadn't seen it, like he didn't pay attention, because you're like, "Oh, what about this part?" And Ricky's like, "That happened in this episode." You're like, "Yeah," and this other thing, and Ricky's like, "That happened in this episode." And I'm thinking, if Ricky can't remember it and he just watched it, I think I need to go back and watch it. Anyway, there's my little thing. So, Andrew, embrace the decimal.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 9.4. Sucky star things to the face out of 10.
Sucky star things to the face. I like it. I did think it was interesting that if they missed, they died.
Yeah.
Like their lifespan is seconds. Because if they missed,
I also thought it was cool how they basically came out of the star's armpits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was pretty gross. And also, like, I like how Ratcatcher puts on her mask, and that protects her. But, like, Bubble or Polka Dot Man, he just looks down. And they're just... just kind of cracked me up. Oh, we didn't mention it. The Shark Man, when he's, like, playing with those fish, and it was very beautiful. And then they attack him. You're like, oh, they're not looking at you because they think you're pretty. Yeah, they want to eat you. So... Anyway, I mean, obviously their teeth are sharp enough that they were penetrating his skin because bullets didn't. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, Jesse.
I cannot in good consciousness go that high. I had a lot of fun with the movie. I enjoyed it. If you're looking for something fun and entertaining to watch it was a little bit long, but if you're looking for something fun and entertaining to watch for a couple of hours, it's definitely the right ticket. I am going to give this movie a 6.8993 Staros.
Oh, he has fully
out
embraced.
of 10. Okay. Yeah, it's not quite a 7 for a couple of reasons for me. It is above. I try to think of a 5 as a movie that I don't care if I see. Right. So like a 5 is a movie who all the marketing in the world isn't going to get me in the theater for that movie. So this movie is definitely above that. The marketing was very well done, and it was not misleading in any way. Like there was nothing about the marketing that made me think I was getting anything other than R-rated Guardians of the Galaxy, which you definitely get in this movie.
Right.
And I'd say the biggest detractor for me is some of the spirit of the movie feels a little needlessly mean, which normally I wouldn't really care about, but like because of the entire history of James Gunn getting fired by Marvel for the reasons that he got fired by Marvel. Like, I understand the whole past is the past thing, but like the sentiment of the things that you got fired for is pretty close to some of the sentiment that you spend a lot of time reveling in this movie. I, as an adult, am able to parse that, and my enjoyment of it can be separate from that. So I'm good with that. But I feel like it would be, I don't know if irresponsible is the right word, but it would be untruthful to not bring that up, I think. But it was definitely, I was not upset when the movie was over that I had watched it. Like I said, there were tons of actual genuine laughs. John Cena, perfectly cast. Margot Robbie, I'm willing to go watch other DC movies now if she's in them. I'm maybe even just willing to watch movies that have Margot Robbie now. So overall, I really liked it, but I have to stick with my very decimal-centric rating.
Another Margot Robbie film that I think is a little underrated is a movie called Focus with her and Will Smith, and he's a con artist, and she's really good in that. And I think it's a good movie. I don't care what you say.
I'll look into it.
I think it's a good movie. Sam.
Yeah, I am basically going to say I enjoyed the heck out of this thing and would recommend it to anybody but my pastor and parents. So I think a 7.85 out of 10 for me on this one.
Okay. So I cheated because I have access to the list, and I went back and looked. So my favorite DCEU movie is Wonder Woman, up until about 24 hours ago. And I've been kind of mulling over it, is that would I put this over that movie? And today, maybe a month from now, I change my mind. But today, right now, as I sit here, this is my favorite DCEU movie that has been made. I really had a good time with it. Yes, there's dumb things. I didn't care. Like Sam said at the beginning in your intro, there's actually a lot to really like, and there's a lot of great directing choices that were made that we didn't even get into. Like the fact that this movie has chapters, guys. This movie has a chapter. Operation Destroy Jotunheim. No, we actually have to go
Operation Save Harley.
Save Harley. Like that's amazing how they did it in the fire and the blood in the water. And Jotunheim is shown to us as a location in the roofing metal and antenna and stuff on this building.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, all of that stuff is such fun director choices and visions. We kind of make, like, the Russo brothers make fun of their own title cards, right? Because they always have these giant block letters, Los Angeles, Midgard, like whatever they do, right? They're kind of doing that as a joke. Whereas this guy, James Gunn, was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it like they would do it in a comic book. And that's why I really liked it. So I went back and looked at my score for Wonder Woman. Andrew, by the way, you gave Wonder Woman a 9.0.
Wow.
Yeah, I like this one more than Wonder Woman. Yeah.
And I gave Wonder Woman an 8.75. So as I sit here now, I'm going to give this movie an 8.9.
Wow.
An 8.9. I don't like rats on my lap, but I'm going to try to pet it anyway. So, I was actually waiting for that last moment for the rat to shit on him, honestly.
Oh, see, that would have been perfect.
He finally gets
a little
the
wet
courage.
Spot with a couple of crap pieces.
Yeah, he finally gets the courage to pet the thing, and either it was going to bite him or it was going to shit on him. That's what I expected to happen. But I'm going to give it an 8.9. With giving the rounding, this movie is an 8.262325.
You're welcome.
That's perfect.
But no, that's good. I think that's good. All right. The last few things I have here as a point of my business before I let Jesse talk more about his show is the quote game, quote number 28. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Now, my wife had this really great idea. She said, do you people participate in your quote game? And I said, a couple. It's the kind of the usual, Maxton or Andrew, some of our other listeners that are a little more active. So I am doing this. I still have a few stickers left, a few Cheap Seat Review stickers. So tell me what movie that quote is from, and I will select at random someone to receive a sticker. I will mail you. Of course, you have to give me the quote, the movie, and then if you want a sticker, your address. And I will mail you. I guess don't give me your address. If you win, I'll message you and then you give me your address. I don't want a whole bunch of people's addresses. But I'll mail you a sticker. So the quote, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Let me know what it is and I will mail you a sticker. Maxon, you can't apply because you already have a sticker for me. But everybody else is free to participate.
I don't know this quote. I'm interested to see what this is.
I know the quote, but I can't remember the movie. I've heard that quote 1,000 times.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is just like biblical knowledge. Isn't it?
I thought like this was from The Art of War by whoever wrote that.
Oh, it was etched in stone
Sun Tzu.
somewhere.
I was about to say Shang-Chi, but like that's the new Marvel thing.
That's a different one.
I think it's Shang-Chi. I mean, we've been saying it wrong. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, yeah. I'm excited for that too. That'll be good.
Same.
All right, that's it. I have nothing more on my list of things to say other than, Jesse, once again, it's a pleasure having you on. It doesn't feel like it's been 2.5 months or whatever it was since we had you on last, but then again, it also feels like it's been 6 years. So thank you for coming back on the show and tell us more about season 2 of what's going on with you.
Yeah, so season 2, as Sean mentioned, of Sudden But Inevitable is focused on Cowboy Bebop. The thing that you had mentioned with Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D not feeling like he had picked up anything that had happened in the first episode is actually kind of what we were counting on. Ricky D and Josh, who is the head of the Twist My Arm podcast network, where our show is part of, they are not anime fans. They're actually closer to anime detractors. So we figured, okay, we used the first season to introduce Josh to Firefly, right? He had never seen Firefly before, but he was a Star Wars fan. And we're like, oh, okay, Star Wars is our way into Firefly for Josh. Firefly was our way into Cowboy Bebop for Josh and Ricky D from Best Flicks with Ricky D. And we are having so much fun. Our show is on average about 2 hours and 10 minutes. And that's just because we've all known each other for so long. I've known Josh 20 plus years and we're 30 years old. So we're going 1 or 2 episodes at a time this season. There's a lot of jazz in the production, which we feel is fitting because it is Cowboy Bebop. But we just, all of our wonderful listeners and friends and live viewers from season 1 have come with us and we're having so much fun. So if introducing somebody that you know to a show that you love and getting them to love it as much as you do sounds like it might be fun, and Cowboy Bebop or Firefly happen to be that show for you, then definitely check out Sudden But Inevitable. We are everywhere you get podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Sudden But. You can also follow me on Instagram at Sudden But Inevitable Podcast. You can also go to twistmyarmpodcast.com/SBI to get all of our videos and podcast episodes and merchandise, etc., all in one place. So please go check us out. And we're going to get Sean back. We just have to figure out how to either get him a couple episodes or maybe postpone him till next season when we're watching a show that he has access to. But definitely go check out Sean's episode from season 1 of the Sudden But Inevitable rewatch, where we talked about the Firefly episode.
Ariel. We did Ariel.
Yeah. Yes, we did. See, it's hard for me to remember because you guys have been doing a podcast for, I'm sure, what feels like ever. We've been doing it since January, and I'm already forgetting stuff that happened in those episodes. So I think I need to get a spreadsheet like yours, Sean, because that seems to be the way to go. Absolutely. But on that note, I do just want to say thank you so much for having me back to Cheapseat. I had a lot of fun the first time when we watched Road to Perdition, and I had a lot of fun debating Cameron on the Them's Fighting Nerds special episode. So it's always fun to come chat with you guys. I think the thing that I like about it the most is that you can tell that you guys really all are good friends for a long time too. So that makes the space here feel like I can just kind of say whatever I mean and you guys will know it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it does feel like forever, but that's mostly because of Sam. I feel like I have about 1,000 more announcements to get to. The show is running about 2 hours long at this point. So I'll simply say this. Cheap Seat Reviews has been going strong, and we have more guests coming up, and I'm very excited to see how things are going. Also, the three of us, will be making an appearance on the coming up in October. The three of us will be on an episode of Measure the Score, and we're going to be doing a couple of Halloween movies, literally Halloween, the original Halloween movie, one and the one that came out in 2018.
Nice.
Also, I, along with Jesse and a few others, are going to be doing something very unique. This weekend, we're doing a podcast convention. We're hosting the first annual or first ever or whatever.
Right now we're calling it first ever because we don't know what the plan is yet for next year.
First ever, but it's a podcast convention where we're going to be doing some kind of how-to things, and we're going to have some people come on, and I'm going to be on as both as a guest panelist for best practices for microphones and audio and editing and some things like that. Some of the nuts and bolts behind the podcast, and Jesse and some others are going to be doing some more of the other kind of behind the scenes stuff for the podcast, how to build an audience and things. So it's very cool. So that's, Jesse, you're going to have to remind me of the website. Just go to twistmyarmpodcast.com.
Yep.
Go to that website. It'll be in the show notes. There you'll find all the information. That's like this coming Saturday. So as I release this episode, it's in a few days. If you listen to this episode.
And everything is free. That's very important to remember. We're not trying to sell you something. This is a free indie podcast melding of the minds where other indie podcasters who are also broke give you their best tips and tricks.
Sure. With all that having been said, I have nothing more to say. Go to our website, cheapseatreviews.libsyn.com, and that's going to do it. Next week, we're watching Resident Evil. In the meantime, cheapseatreviews.libsyn.com, and on behalf of Jesse, Sam, and Andrew, this is Sean saying thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
This is Cheap Seat Reviews.